Hello, welcome to Mining Now. I'm your host, Jared Downey. I am back in the host chair, Gowdy.
Did you miss being on Mining Now on any of the shows? Actually?
I actually did. I really enjoyed being out at CIM. It was sort of a neat experience because you actually were on a stage. Sorry for the audience. CIM Virtual 2021 just happened.
Yep.
The speakers that they got were crazy. So I got to do some Q&As with a lot of them, open their plenary session. It was neat because here it's very just like I do my own content and that you're running the computers, but there's people running around checking sound. And there's a timer on that you need to follow the exact thing, and it was neat. It was a neat experience for me. I got to stumble around on stage trying to say all these different mining companies, right?
Oh, that's.
It was.
That must have been hard for you.
The French words. Oh my goodness, it was bad. But anyway, it was lots of fun. We got some good feedback. Another big milestone today. Actually, I'm going to say who's coming on the show today first. This is a first for us for having a customer and supplier set up. We've never done it before, which seems strange. We would have done that before, but I think more companies seeing it are going to do it now.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So Eric Demers from Technica Mining. So Technica is the underground mining and construction contractor.
Okay.
Eric is going to be on with Gus Miner, who is with Sofvie. Now, Sofvie came on before.
Yeah.
I'll just read out. Sofvie provides an amazing software platform that connects every level of an organization. This is what I was doing on stage. To enhance communication and redefines hazard and risk management in the workplace. And they don't use the term redefined lightly. They really have redefined it. So it's this customer supplier setup. They're going to be talking about the relationship, communicating, developing the ideas, adopting the technology, tons of stuff to cover. Last thing I'll cover is Mining for Miracles, which we sit on that I sit on the committee for. Yep. They reached over 1.2 million for the BC Children's Hospital Foundation.
Wow, that is great.
So yeah, Carla Mills from Tech and Stephen Kraus, the chairs and all that whole team. It's just amazing what they're doing. So well done, and well done, mining industry.
Yes.
Who are our sponsors today, Gabby?
Of course. So today we've got O-Pit Blast. They help their customers optimize drill and blast operations, as well as solve efficiency issues with their outstanding solutions. O-Pit Blast offers a platform that includes a top-shelf software, its own designated app and a website, a probe for borehole deviation measurements, and a full department specialized in technical services such as underwater blasting. You can learn more at opitblast.com. O-Pit Blast, with us, it is possible. Next up, we also have Savannah Equipment. Savannah Equipment supplies new and used mining equipment around the world, from placer to underground to ore processing plants. They have gold concentrating tables, trommels, and mineral jigs in stock now to take advantage of the high gold prices. You can visit them at savannahequipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day. And we also have Innoventa, which is great because this is coming up. Innoventa Group of Companies is presenting a panel on May 19th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. The topic is out-of-the-box thinking, how IoT technologies enable mine transformation to future-proof operations. Abstract, mining is undergoing a shift towards Industry 4.0 and is experiencing new challenges and benefits. As the shift occurs, mines are finding new opportunities to improve production, safety, and cost savings. Technological change is here, and early implementation has risks, but waiting is the greater risk of leaving you at a competitive disadvantage. Join them to discuss and prepare for the impacts and benefits of Industry 4.0. The session will give insight into the opportunities currently available and what is next from top innovation companies in the mining industry. This is free and virtual, and it includes panelists such as Trang Tran Valad of Forte, Glenn Deganes of Bestech, and Ron Bose of XPS, with moderator Don Duval of Norcat. For more information, you can check out their LinkedIn page, where you will find the Eventbrite link to register, or you can also contact Alyssa Sabarine at Alyssa_Sabarine at innoventa.com. And of course, last but not least, we've got Power Zone. When you need a specialized team of world-class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you want to visit powerzone.com. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems, no matter the challenge, no matter the location. Get in the zone with Power Zone. Visit them at powerzone.com. There we go.
Okay, thank you, Gowdy. I think the some of the technology sponsors are very fitting to have Sofvie be part of this episode.
Absolutely.
Welcome, Gus and Eric. Good to have you back, Gus, and welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Okay, we're going to cover. This is a new setup for me as well, because I'm used to either having a couple people from the same company or completely different companies. Sort of, we've done some panels before, but this relationship between the supplier and service provider and the customer is going to be kind of interesting to walk through. Eric, I'm going to kick it off with you. Can you just do a setup of what Technica Mining offers, so that we can sort of understand then where Sofvie provides that service to you?
Yeah, we offer a variety of mining services. So construction, development, shaft, financing, recently surface mining, engineering, a little bit of everything. And we pride ourselves on our white glove service. That's what we do. So in the underground world, construction, we build refuge stations, ore passes, muck handling circuits, develop those as well, and help mining companies achieve their goals.
And I kind of want to have an understanding, and we've talked about this coming in, and sort of how I want to approach it. Rather than where you're at now, I kind of wanted to take back so we sort of could have that contrast. When it came to, communicating hazards and risk management and those, obviously vital, literally life vital things, to your operation. What was the old way of doing it at Technica Mining specifically?
The old way at Technica would have been a variety of ways, but if we go back, would have been paper. So you're looking at field level risk assessments, or pre-tasks, we call them, on paper documents that the worker would fill out underground in the field. The supervisor would review it with them during the day. They come up at the end of the day and hand that document or card or paper in whatever condition was in, wet, dirty, might have got lost, was handed in, and the supervisor would then review it, document it, take the pertinent information, put it onto their shift report. We've went from paper to an Excel base. Now Sofvie obviously is why we're here. But there was a huge opportunity to lose those key pieces of information. And there was information was being recorded that we had no idea. We knew we wanted access to. We knew that it was important to make a difference in people's lives. But you would lose it. It was just on paper, lived in a box somewhere.
Right. Hey, Gus, I want to jump over to you because you've worked you've been on the show. You unpacked it so nicely on the last episode, but I think it's important because our audience it's always a little bit different on every episode. So sort of that backstory of you being part of developing Sofvie. Can you sort of give us that setup?
Yeah, for sure. What really drove it for us at Sofvie and how we came to be was from my experience in the mining industry as a whole, right? So, I went from working as a frontline worker to working my way up to a supervisor, and then the coordinator, and then eventually a superintendent, and working at different levels of project management within the mining industry. So a lot of those opportunities that Eric spoke about and touched on, I felt those wholeheartedly through my career in the mining world, right? So a lot of that information that I had as somebody working in the industry, I brought forward with me, but it also created a lot of opportunity to have all of those direct feedback from the worker, from the supervisor, from every level. So we can capitalize on some of the hold points or some of the pain points that we had in the field, and bundle this in to Sofvie properly, so that they're not only it's not only a solution that's available, but that truly meets the requirements. Right?
The Gus, sorry, Eric. Even in our own, in our little company, we've we just brought someone in new, and they're putting in systems in place on Excel spreadsheets and that, and it's and for me as leadership in the company, I'm having to let go a little bit because I do not do Excel spreadsheets, and then what Sofvie does is ratcheting Excel spreadsheets up to another level. Were there any roadblocks to get it off the ground from an internal standpoint? I mean, obviously you have people that have been in the industry a long time. They're used to filling out the paper and handing it in, or some days maybe not filling out the paper, all that sort of thing. Was there those internal roadblocks for adopting something like Sofvie?
Yeah, there are definitely internal roadblocks. Whether it's internal stakeholders, supervisors, superintendents used to doing it a certain way, even project managers for that matter. You're so busy and overwhelmed with the work that you're doing that it's hard to, want to take on that big change initiative and help move things forward. So I think it's definitely a challenge. You got to recognize that people are busy. People do have a job they're trying to do, and what they have works for them at the moment. So for them to see the value of what you're bringing forward is definitely a roadblock. For us, the other roadblock, a couple that we've met up with were technology. So having Wi-Fi and internet reliably available at some of our projects and some remote projects was an issue.
Wait, so for Gus, when you were hearing that, obviously, and maybe, and feel free to sort of dive into that communication between you and Eric, but how did you approach getting that feedback and figuring out how to basically get through those roadblocks, from a client, their internal challenges and the technology challenges? How did you sort of feel? How did you and your team feel those concerns?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's been so unique with our partnership with Technica and how we've been working together, to create the solutions that we're creating. But being that Technica was the earliest adopter of Sofvie, we had the immediate opportunity to create streamlined communications through Microsoft Teams and other help desk portals that we put in place, so that the communication directly from the field was as easy to do as possible. So in the early days, it was basically wide open. Every single person that was touching the platform had free reign, open opportunity to communicate directly with us. And we fielded those requests and requirements and pain points directly. And as we've evolved, I mean, we were talking, sometimes we were up to over 500 users on our platform through Technica, right? So we're able to then streamline a lot of that through some champions and some leads, so to speak, over on the Technica side. And Eric and I have been in communication directly daily to make sure that not only we knew what was happening, but if it got a little too quiet sometimes, because sometimes you would imagine that no news is good news. Unfortunately, with technology and the way that it works in my years in tech, no news is sometimes disconnection, or new news is sometimes people are tired of reporting the same things. So in the same elements of why we created a lot of the tools in Sofvie to make sure we fast track and streamline communication directly from the workforce up, so that we can encourage and foster that feedback. That's where we put a lot of effort in to make sure that, even if you said it, even if you think that others have said it, or you think you said it before, say it again, because maybe the way that you're explaining it this time will land differently, and it'll actually pinpoint a different problem that we're not aware about. So we've Eric and I have done a lot of work to make sure that we keep that pipeline of information flowing, to ultimately not only make sure that Sofvie offers the value that we were aiming at offering, but at the same time that things are working the way they're supposed to be working from operations standpoint, and not delaying things for them in the transition.
That must have been a huge advantage, having that sort of communication back and forth from developing the software. Like you see, I was talking to someone I was actually out of the ag space. and they were saying that there's so many companies that have come into the agriculture sector, and they're not from agriculture. They come in with a technology built essentially in a lab somewhere, and it just doesn't connect with what the real world scenario's in. So you must, I mean, I know you come from the industry as well, but that must, I mean, having 500 people on the platform with the opportunity to essentially complain and say, hey, no, this isn't working, that's not working. I mean, that must have just expedited your R&D just in a huge way.
It does. I mean, it helps tremendously. I mean, without without the partnerships that you could put in place, the way that Technica stepped up and said, we know this is what we want to do. We know this is where we want to go, and offering up some resources to do that work. How else do you think? How else does innovation really answer the call, right? And when we're putting things together, having that direct feedback. Now we've got a solution that when we go to other clients with, they can clearly see that it's been produced for the workforce, by the workforce, because it does all the things that the workforce required and asked us to deliver. So it really makes for a sound product, so to speak, and it also makes sure the solutions are adequate, so that it's not someone that remembers vaguely how mining occurs, and then you put those processes in place, and then it becomes a disconnect when you try to introduce it in the field. It came directly from the field, so it from that perspective, I think that Sofvie stands out quite a bit when we promote, when we talk about our product with other clients, directly from that involvement, and some of it was everything has to be 3 touch of the screens or less away, or 3 clicks away. And if for us, if you haven't gotten to where you need to be within 3 clicks in our software, it probably doesn't exist. It's probably not there, right. And those kinds of things, right? So ease of use, UI UX design made for the workforce, so it doesn't impede in their day, and it enhances their day.
Right.
So that value from that type of feedback directly with a partner like Technica has been tremendous, and you can't put a value to it, so to speak, monetary, but our product will stand out tremendously through that engagement.
So one of the things, Gus, that I've found through the adoption of Sofvie and using Sofvie is that a lot of our internal processes were there. And so if you look at the pre-task or even the risk management stuff, like those pieces are there. And we're using Sofvie, a tool, to enhance our communication. We're not reinventing and taking on a whole new platform and a whole new way of doing things. We're doing things the way we were doing them, but we've now implemented and adopted Sofvie to fit those systems and programs that we've already had in place. So it made the adoption that much easier.
And was that intentional between the two of you, because there was that collaboration? Was that part of the design, Gus, to be able to do it that way?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, ultimately, we knew that we didn't want to build a product that was going to dictate how people do business. You need to have the flexibility in a platform so that you can operate the way that you choose to operate, and have Sofvie as a helping hand in executing that. So making sure that everything was open-ended enough that it's customizable to tackle what you need to do. So Eric and I have had lots of conversations about let's use Sofvie for quality measurement. Let's use Sofvie for safety activities. Let's use Sofvie for production metrics and production information. So by having that, you can, as long as you think and you understand the process of what you need to get as an end result, and you work your way backwards from it, for the most part, we've been able to solve those scenarios with Sofvie by some brainstorming. So to Eric's point about making sure that the processes are clear and the required information or the intent for the end goal is clear, then we work our way back as to how we get there, and then build that path. So
the other fun part to all that, sorry, Jared, is the getting to work with Sofvie and being such a new product. A lot of the time, some of the features we were trying out, they were new to us. So we're sort of inventing as we go. So we get to innovate and work through it and shape it and mold it to the way it works for us. So I thought it was, it's very adaptable and flexible in that way. And Gus and the team definitely helped out with that for sure.
Eric, I have this picture in my mind of a site that I've been on, and I know I still know a lot of the people that are there right now, and I could take you on to the site, and I'd be able to go, that guy will not like this. He doesn't know what it is. He just no idea. He just doesn't like that. He'll probably be interested. He'll probably take some time. I'd be able to pick out sort of how everybody's going to respond, and I'd probably be close within about a 5% margin. What was your approach to getting people on board? Did you do it from top down? Did you start with people? I mean, the whole young people are the ones that are, championing change. It actually has not been my experience. I think it comes down to the individual, because I've met people in their 70s that they are looking for innovation. They get excited about it. And I met 20-year-olds that just hate it when small things in their world change. So I think it comes down to the individual, but how did you approach that?
So I'll agree with you on the individual piece. Like, I had some of the same thoughts you had, or that guy probably won't take it well. This person won't want to do it. I was actually quite surprised. Sometimes you had I guess to use the age, some of the older, more experienced people that I thought would struggle with it. They just took it. They, went home, got a family member to help them with it. They were back. They were the first people to take it on. We had a different approach. So we've been working with tablets for a while, trying to get moved to a paperless system now for about 5 years. So supervisors had already been introduced to tablets and a system in the past. We moved with Sofvie about 2 years ago. We went with the supervisors at first, stuff they were comfortable with. And then in September of 2020, we decided that we were going to all workers, and everybody in the company got a tablet. And we took it from the approach of more of a peer training thing, where everybody got a tablet, and supervisors showed coworkers how to do it. Gus talked about super users and champions. We had champions helping out as well. And it's really been organic. Like, I can't say it was like, we prescribed it. We rolled out a big full training package. There's a few videos we made, things like that to help out, but really it was organic. It was driven by the workforce. They're the ones that are going to use it, and they're the ones that taught themselves and taught each other. And it's been quite the interesting way to do it. Certainly not, we were trying it and it worked out fantastic. I would try that again for sure.
I always am bringing up the age thing on the show because it's one of those things that really bothers me and I've had people almost hesitant to come on this show because they think they're older and maybe people don't want to hear what they have to say. And those have been some of the most popular episodes because of that wisdom and again, down to the individual, not everybody, but so I always bring it up when I have a chance. Gus, I was wondering when Eric said about people that adoption being organic though, was that part of the plan, or like starting today, if a major mining contractor down in Latin America said, hey, we want to take this on, we've got a staff of 500 people, 3 different sites, what is going to be your approach to rolling it out for them?
I mean, every organization has their own journey, right? And the way that we've approached that is we've partnered up with multiple different organizations and service providers to be able to identify exactly what's going to be required as far as like an entry point and how we're going to see it through. And a lot of it has to do with the culture of the organization. So, and the reason I say that is that a lot of times when you sit back and you just assess like where things are from the organizational perspective, you realize that you may be focusing 90% of your efforts on 5% of the population, right? And what we found is that you can put a really, really good solid plan in place and put a lot of effort to make sure that you roll it out specifically in that prescription model. But ultimately, people will surprise you. And ultimately, a lot of times it's just, you got to rip off the Band-Aid and just kind of go with it. Right. But what was interesting is that as a virtue of how we designed the platform based on feedback, when we go to training sessions, sometimes we're on, if you say like the training session will have step 1 to 10 kind of thing. Yeah. We're on step 2 or step 2.5. And already the majority of the workshop that's there is talking about step 10 and asking about step 13. That's not even part of that session and beyond. So I find that making sure that the user experience and user input design in the platform to make sure that it's intuitive and easy to learn and easy to navigate is probably the biggest hurdle that you could have with certain innovations is that readoption or that relearning cycle, right? Where you have to train and retrain. A lot of that stuff is organic, like Eric was saying, where if they don't know a specific thing, they'll talk to a coworker and then they'll fill in the gaps and they'll go forward. So when we talk to your organizations, to come back to that, is that there's a certain amount of push that you do so that you can introduce it and start of implementing the transitions to certain processes and procedures. And within a certain amount of time, it becomes a pull where the majority of the people that are waiting for their turn will be like, when am I next? Right. When am I going to get this? Oh, by the way, I really enjoy doing this activity in the system. When can I do this next activity? And then it becomes a regulation at that point where you start regulating the flow of change so that it doesn't kind of escape your grasp so much so that you don't, kind of unwind or unravel. And I think Eric can probably touch on that as well.
Yeah, we're there now with certain things, risk management module being one of them, which is like the part of the rollout we're in now. So we've rolled it out to some parts of the organization, and some of our clients are using different tools. So people have to use those tools. But they're demanding it. They're demanding more, and sometimes it outpaces the rest of the organization. You risk leaving everybody else behind and causing major disruption. So we have to have conversations and try to manage it so it's achievable, reasonable, and same time, a lot of change will cause disruptions in your performance overall. So we got to be cognizant of that and careful with that.
Eric, I was wondering too, like if I was a mine operator today, and this is actually since Gus came on the show last time, if I was a mine operator today, I would be checking any contractor's safety processes now, including the technology that they use. Does that become a selling point for Technica Mining when you are bidding on these contracts? That you have these not just safety measures in place, but the process that you're implementing them and risk assessment and those types of things. That are companies going to be starting to ask for that or demand? I mean, we just run everything on paper. I can't imagine that's going to be good enough. 5 years from now, I can't even imagine you'd be allowed to do it that way. Would you?
Yeah, I don't think they're asking for. They're not asking for it yet, demanding that you're using technology. However, I think it is a competitive advantage to be able to use that and to demonstrate consistent use of it. I think it's actually a selling feature, if you will, shows our innovation and our dedication to safety.
Yeah. Well, and that the documentation will be more accurate as well. I mean, if I'm a mining operator, I want to know what's going on, and if a company can show that, I would think it would have to be an advantage.
Well, I think from the mining operator side, I think it's excellent. We're used to have someone managing documents and scan this, put this into a system over here. They ask for something. Here's a USB key, or here's an email with all the documents. I pulled 2 clicks. I've got your report for you. Here you go. I'm not having to manage compliance tables and training records. It's all there at a click of a button. And we're working now with some clients where I've actually starting to work on creating different user accounts. So to see if I can give them access to some of the data specific to their project. That way they can help themselves and go have a look. We would send them the documentation otherwise.
Right. Yeah. No, that's interesting. And Gus, you talked about it on last time too. I think we were discussing when every now and then, for whatever reason, paper, I have to deal with it. And I'm so used to not dealing with it that I actually have quite a bit of trouble with it. I'm like, how do I separate these 4 things? I guess I need a binder thing. And I know it sounds silly to someone who's listening to it, but I just do not deal with paper very often. And that's also a stumbling block. And Eric, you can touch on this too, is that when you're attracting new talent, you and this does go to the young side, they're going to be coming up in a paperless world, or have come up in a paperless world. And it's going to help integrate them into the workforce sooner.
Yeah, and we've already got some, quite a bit of that feedback where we've got people that come from outside of industry coming into industry, learning it and adapting to the industry much quicker because they didn't have to worry about missing information. So with technology like this, what it does open is the opportunity for real-time, accessible information. So you're not left to only understand what's been given to you on a sheet of paper, and if it doesn't exist on a piece of paper, you don't know where it is. You know where to find information when you need it, how you need it, and the format you need it in. And that applies through the organization, where a lot of times you'll have processes on paper where it goes from desk to desk to desk to desk. And if somebody goes on holidays, or someone is sick, or someone has changed roles, then all of a sudden that whole process just broke and it's at a standpoint. So digitizing things and having things centrally accessible is just a feature that not only brings on new talent, but also re-engineers quite a bit how you handle your information. And it cleans up your desk a lot. So if you know that you always have access to it and you can get to it at any time, there's no sense of holding a backlog of paperwork on your desk. You just go get it when you need it. And to Eric's point, that window of opportunity also opens itself as well for subcontractors or clients that you're working with. Now you give them the specific access key to their front door, and they can help themselves at will rather than waiting for a timely package or waiting for a completed submission. They can keep track on it on a regular basis. So it really does present a lot of opportunity.
One of the, sorry, Jared, just you got me thinking now. So for new people coming into the industry, people are used to notifiers on emails, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. And one of the really interesting things is people have, I don't know if we're programmed to it, or that gamification piece, or like addicted to it. So recently, one of the changes Sofvie made was the introduced notifiers, and like instantly people were like demanding them, and they were using them to make sure that they're doing things and making sure they're meeting their targets and making sure that they were, it became something that they wanted. Well, so I don't forget, can you add that? Can I get that? So I think that people are there as far as like wanting it and used to using technology and apps. It's there. There's a strong demand for it. And then the other piece, so we've asked, we work closely with NORCAT as well on different training programs, and with Sofvie, and we've asked, how do we get people, the up and coming workforce, in tune with apps and working in a paperless world. So Gus, I know you and NORCAT had a press release earlier this week that kind of heads in that direction.
I saw something was coming out, but then I was at CIM, so in the feed it scrolled past me, so I actually missed the news release. So I was going to ask off camera, but we're here now. So what was that?
Yeah, so we're always in the way that I talk about Sofvie is that we have our solutions, but we're also building a network. And whenever we touch base with anybody new outside of the organization, is that we bring a whole network with us. And one of the really exciting recent additions to that network has been our partnership with NORCAT. And if you wanted to sum up what Sofvie does, is Sofvie helps you put your health and safety framework in action. We're here to make it go, so that it's not a binder sitting on a shelf somewhere and hopefully everybody complies to your methodologies. It helps you execute it. So with NORCAT, with their health and safety excellence program, they're able to help organizations put together that framework and that common ground, or that common understanding of how things are to be executed on a day-to-day basis, to make sure that organizations have everything in place for not only for due diligence, but as well as engaging every layer of the organization for health and safety to comply and to operate with their health and safety framework. And Sofvie now becomes a piece of the puzzle where we help that framework come to life. So together with NORCAT, we offer a fairly significant end-to-end solution from the conception of your framework all the way to the execution of your framework, right to the front line. So it's really exciting, and we're up to some really great processes and frameworks to really accelerate things for organizations.
Sounds like show number 3 on mining now to me. Eric, I want to kind of take a step, not a step back, a step into maybe pick us a role within your company, someone who's on the ground, and sort of paint that picture. Because Gus and I talked a little bit about it on the last show, but I sort of want it from your perspective that what someone working on the ground in your company, what their day is like as it relates to as Sofvie's technology. Can you just sort of paint, like, starting the day with the iPad and then sort of how it ends and that sort of just the actual physical process that they're going through?
Yeah, I'll start with the worker. I mean, we've gone through this process for each and every role because it is different for each and every role. But from the worker, they arrive, they get dressed as they normally would. They get to our lineup room, which is typically one of our trailers on site. We have tablet charging stations there where their tablets or devices are stored and charged, plugged in. They're getting their devices out, they're turning them on, they're looking at their emails, they're opening Sofvie up, and then they participate in lineup. And lineup varies from site to site, but typically the supervisor will open up Sofvie on a screen, usually either a computer monitor or TV in the lineup room. We'll line up the entire crew. They see their lineup. If there's changes, they make them live. And before they leave, they submit the lineup, which includes all the critical information of a successful day. And now ties in the risk management. So part of one of our important processes that the employees know what job risk assessment step they're on for the day and what the controls are to make sure that they're safe. They get that on their device. They review it, mark it as reviewed. They have their lineup. They know what they're doing for the day. They know what everybody else is up to. And then they're off to work. They get to the workplace. They take their pre-task out. They start doing their pre-task. They're doing inspection of the workplace. If they find any open hazards, they contact their supervisor, let them know about it, put in a hazard report, which will then make its way onto the next shift's lineup if it's not been rectified or cleaned up. They proceed through that. Supervisor visits them during the day. And then they take pictures of their workplace, what it looked like when they showed up, what it looks like when they were done. They document the work that they've done, the conditions that they're leaving things in, and they submit it to their supervisor. The oncoming shift can review it. The supervisor then reviews it at the end of the day. On top of that, they're doing the same with their equipment. So they arrive at their equipment. They're doing their pre-operational checks. They're taking checking the fluids, checking the conditions, the seat belts. They're taking pictures of the equipment at the start of the shift and pictures at the end of the shift. Again, details, if there's a hazard, they communicate it through a hazard report. They're notifying their supervisor, just enhances communication. Pictures worth 1,000 words. And we have seen, just through pictures, the condition of equipment improving, workplaces improving just by not as an intentional thing, but it's just what's happened. And so they show up at the end of the day, they get to surface, they make sure that their documents are synced and submitted, they put their tablets back on the charger, and they're gone for the day.
As soon as you said about taking the picture, my mind went, oh, there's going to be an improvement in equipment maintenance and care right away, just because but that wasn't even an intent. That's what.
No, it's not the intent, but it has occurred.
Yeah.
It's hard to miss.
Well, that's what I was going to ask us is what, and I'm glad that Eric could just actually walk through that, because now the question is, what did you picture when it started? How close is it?
I mean, it's fairly close. What we didn't know is all of the unexpected halo, like the halo effect, where you have an intent, but then there's other things that that you get along the way. And that housekeeping thing was probably the one that caught us by surprise quickly. And the reason why it did so quickly is that, when we were analyzing how workers were interacting with the application, and even supervisors, then we're starting to see a lot of equipment washing, a lot of staging. So, you'll no different than when you do at home. If you want to take a picture to sell your home, you're going to take all your junk and put it aside and take a nice picture. But at the same time, what ends up happening is that you've cleaned up. The unintended consequence is that you've taken a good picture so that we understand where the work is at, but there's nothing else in the way. So you've actually mitigated a lot of the hazards by performing the proper housekeeping. And the same thing with equipment. So that was really nice. And I mean, I saw one individual, and he's actually one of the older individuals on the platform, where, he's taken a knee and taken some really good shots of his truck because he was proud of the cleaning job that he done in his truck. Yeah. So the engagement was also something that came in as a byproduct of it all, is that not only are we engaging from a communication standpoint and understanding what's going on and keeping the work moving forward, but everybody's relatively very engaged to make sure that they can kind of like display their hard work and display what they've done. So that sense of pride and the engagement into the system came from that, right? And it's amazing what pictures have what I've done transformally.
The other piece that I missed in talking about it was the positive recognition. So like the pride piece. So there's the pride in the pictures, but you're getting employees recognizing other employees for work that they're doing, things that otherwise would go unnoticed, and it's helping with morale and helping with engagement for sure. Definitely helps that the CEO can from anywhere in the world be in his office looking at his computer, and he's reviewing pre-tasks and pre-ops and pictures and making comments and recognizing people as well. And it flows both ways, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's when you were talking about that, there is always when you improve something, some people are fans of them, some people aren't. I happen to be a big fan, but Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about start with cleaning your room. Start there before you try to fix the world. Start with cleaning your room and see what happens. And because it's been known for a long time. When you do one thing, it sort of it compounds. Same thing with investments. If it grows and grows and grows. If you go the other way, if you leave something laying out, then it goes the other way and it gets more dangerous and more chaotic. And so that, and it's interesting that that's actually wasn't the original intention, but that's a result, because that is how things work, is that they just continue to compound and improve, especially when you're opening communication.
And I'll say that, one of the biggest contributors to that is in the leadership.
Yeah.
Right. So you can promote any technology, whether it's a software, whether it's a different type of equipment, whatever the case may be. But ultimately, that as human beings, we're always chasing some form of a validation that we're doing things correct, or that we've done what we were supposed to be doing. Because everybody at the end of the day wants to perform at a certain level. Everybody wants to perform and feel proud of what they've accomplished through the day. So having that leadership engaged, like we talked about, like Eric mentioned about the CEO just kind of peeking in and checking out pre-tasks and pre-ops and really checking or looking at to what the culture feels like from a positive acknowledgement standpoint. So when you notice that, worker to worker, you're acknowledging each other, from a worker to a supervisor, like a worker giving, acknowledgements to a supervisor for job well done. It's a really good indicator of what's going on. And when you take advantage of the data in that way, now you've got everybody engaged into the system, and the comments and the communication being cyclical now, where it just kind of loops in the whole organization. It really makes a big difference on how things get adopted, accepted, and move forward. And then now the whole group is innovating together, rather than a pushed on initiative, right?
Well, when I've worked on sites, one of the I never had this issue. I'm a little more talkative, and I get out there a little bit more. So, and I would see, and sometimes I would try to spin the spotlight over to people, because they're not credit takers. They're not the people that are just naturally as talkative and that sort of thing. And so sometimes they wouldn't get the credit that they really did deserve. And not even because people were trying to take it from him. It's just not their personality. But in something like this, now you can actually, there's a system in place that those people that are doing that really good job actually get to not just show what they're doing for their own sake, but sort of elevate the whole workplace without having to be that, outgoing personality.
It really changes the perspective on different things. Like sometimes it's the story, people have a story about a certain individual. You go back and you start looking at the positive recognitions, and you start to see that, is that really true? Like, this person's pretty awesome. And then when it comes to our employee reviews at the end of the year, I mean, I remember having to write a review, and you got to remember what that person was doing a year ago. My notes weren't that great. And so now I have it. I can go search it, what were some hazards? What were some different, disciplines possibly, or positive IDs, like what was this person recognized for? What have other people seen that I'm not seeing?
Right.
And we have a much better conversation. It's very transparent.
Yeah, it's absolutely, I think it's, and again, that's what I was going to before, like for a mine operator, I think as Sofvie grows and continues to evolve, I think it's going to be part of that change. You talk about, one of our advertisers was talking about mining 4.0. Sofvie is definitely on the leading edge of 4.0. It's going to be mandatory. I'm just making a prediction. But I really think it's going to be, because I would not, with the things that are at my fingertips now, if I'm a mine operator, I would not want somebody showing up with a big stack of binders going, this is our process. I'm going, no. There's no way you're doing that on my site. Like, Gus, what do you think of that? Like, do you think that must be a reality?
I mean, it absolutely is. And even when we break it down, so, just to talk about the risk management side of things, I mean, we perform risk management at different levels of the organization, and they're rarely tied together. And rarely does the workforce that's actually performing the high risk work aware of all the risk mitigations that's occurred behind them. And now that you've got that direct correlation between all those different layers, and it actually lands directly on your lineup, along with all the controls that have been prescribed for those risks. Now you've got not only an informed worker, but they're completely into the environment. They're at the table. They're now at the table, understanding what's going on around them, what the risks are, and all the efforts that have been taken care of along the way to set them up for success. Rather than thinking, I was just told to do this, I'm just going to go do that. Yeah. Well, now it's like, I've been instructed to do this type of work, and here's all the baggage that comes with it, that's going to make me or help me be successful. So from that regards, that would have been binders upon binders of information. And not only is it binders and binders of information, is that now you're reviewing things that don't pertain to you, because you're reviewing things globally rather than reviewing things specifically for what you're doing.
Right.
And which creates its own heartache. And when it comes to version control, I mean, we know as much as anybody else when it's in binders, and so for example, if you got 10 sites and you send out 10 different binders to the sites, and I know you have to make an amendment. Well, welcome to the journey of version control on paper. Now you got to go to each site, make sure that it hasn't been removed from the binder, make sure that the new version exists, make sure that it hasn't been photocopied 100 times and it's floating around. Now it's, you just pull that version, push the new version, your complete version control is taken care of, and everybody can review again.
Right.
So to your point, I think that if somebody really wants to go down the journey of health and safety and productivity excellence, and take advantage of the programs that exist along that side as well, it's not only something that's going to be nice to have, but something that's going to be mandatory and required long term. Especially now that you've got programs with the WSIB excellence programs where they actually offer a rebate for organizations that are at this level in engagement. Because it does make a difference on how many claims you submit at the every year. So there's a good acknowledgement on that side. So the ROI on the journey, is explainable 150 different ways.
Yeah,
it's really not difficult to explain the ROI from the different stakeholders that are there. But more specifically, it's the question is, how do I start this journey? Because just like anything else, when you look at a mountain, you're like, how do I climb this mountain?
Yeah.
And ultimately, it starts with the first step and the first grip, and you work your way up, right? So our journey with Technica has been no different. Is that if you look at the platform as a whole, there's a lot of things that it offers, and it's a fairly significant module. But hey, you trim it all down, and you start with step number one, get the engagement that you're looking for, and as you're doing those first few steps, and you let it evolve organically as you push through. So it really has to be perceived as a journey, along with the bumps and scrapes along the way. It's very rare that you climb a mountain in a straight line, and it makes sense. A lot of times you're going to take a little bit of a horizontal path to kind of find a different route. And it's exactly the same when it comes to adopting technology, is that your intentions are straight line. I'm starting here and I'm going to end there. But the road to success is not a straight line. You're going to have your bumps and scrapes along the way. But that's what makes the journey so much more exciting and engaging long term.
And refines it properly too. If you force a straight line, without gaining that extra knowledge that it takes to sort of navigate, you're going to lose value. You might get there, you might have some version of the system, but it's not actually going to be the best version of what you could have had.
Exactly, and that's what we were talking about earlier about ripping off that the Band-Aid and going forward, or ripping off the tape. Is that there's a lot of things that you know or expect, and there's a lot of things that you don't even know that is possible, and you haven't even thought about it. Yeah. So sometimes it's just you release with love, and see what occurs in the hands of others. And a lot of times you get a lot of surprising feedback, and people are pretty innovative overall. Like, people are pretty creative. And like, if you look at other tools like Facebook and Instagram, like, all those things took off because of how people decided to leverage the platform.
Yeah.
Everybody used it in their own way. So even though you have like a common ground on this is the intention that we're trying to, that we're looking at achieving with our platform, accepting and acknowledging those nuances along the way, really create a strong integration into the workforce, but also an inclusion, right? Where everybody's ideas can come into fruition, not only from the leadership down but it's an organic evolution and innovation as a group, right?
Yeah. Eric, I think this will sort of build off of what Gus was just talking about. There's just a question that's sort of been formulating for me this whole interview. Is I've been on both sides, the seller and the buyer, and when you're approaching a new technology, it can be very frustrating. Even if you have a good relationship with the supplier, it's a challenge. And I just thought, as we wrap up this interview, what advice would you give to somebody who is in your position or in Technica Mining's position that is going to start that climb, as Gus put it, to adopting a new technology, and not just the way you approach it internally, but how you approach the supplier themselves? How do you sort of keep the eye on the prize, but also communicate your concerns? What advice would you give?
One is, it's going to be a journey. It takes time. It's a lot slower than I had ever anticipated. Like, I think it's not like I can just grab it off the shelf and just run with it and it's going to work the first day. Like, there's work there to be done internally that you got to consider. And from communicating with the team, I'm not sure what it would be like to work with any other group. I mean, the team at Sofvie was really open to feedback. But the one thing with technology, and one thing we've experienced, is like Gus called it noise earlier. Sometimes if you have a lot of noise in unison, you get some action. So that would be one strategy to go about it, is if it's really bothersome and it's really not working, squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Right. Yeah. So, and that really was part of, just as we wrap up here, that really was part of it, is to encourage that amount of noise.
It was.
Yeah.
When it's not there, you got to go look for it.
It makes a huge difference, because if you hear something once, the priority level will hit a certain range. But if you hear the same problem through 15 different people, well, that problem has now become a high flyer, and the severity and the priority just climbs instantly. So without that volume of feedback, it becomes difficult to prioritize what matters. And sometimes what matters is a small problem that was reported that completely, and it disables you for the whole day. Well,
Right.
That's not the intended result. So let's get things in action. So if you're disabled for the day, rather than kind of like working your way around it and shutting it down for yourself and moving forward, and keep going, well, you're doing it. There's a huge disservice there to everyone else around you that's experiencing the same thing. So just assume that no one else has ever brought it up and just keep reporting, because it'll climb the ladder in priority and severity so that you get your resolution as fast as you can. Right?
I think there's one other thing there, Jared, and it's if you don't say anything, like, people will drop off and stop using it and stop engaging with it. Like, if you just don't acknowledge it. The other piece was in acknowledging it and getting the talk with Gus and the team at Sofvie. Sometimes they see things you don't see, like, this is my problem. And then I think the solution's over here. And they would be like, no, you might want to try this way. Oh, that works. Great. And so because you're so used to doing things a certain way on paper or Excel or Word or whatever other program you're using, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the answer. If you have an open mind and you have a conversation with it, those things typically come out and they work out. But I found that the times where we haven't said anything and we'll just try it and we'll use it, you get frustrated, people stop using it. But if you have a conversation about it, there's different solutions and different ways to solve them.
Well, gentlemen, I think as Mining 4.0, I think it's kind of Crownsman 4.0 from this episode, because I imagine from seeing this dynamic of the supplier customer setup, it completely changes the interview. It changes the information. So I want to thank you both for coming on. I'm sure you're going to see more of these types of episodes coming out from us now, because it's just an amazing way to be able to just actually unpack both sides of it. So thank you for coming on. I hope we get to continue working together. We will be, because you're both being part of producing a new episode, and maybe Gus touch on that a little bit, because that's exciting news for you.
Yeah, right on. No, thanks, Jared. It was a pleasure to be on again. And as far as what's coming up in the future, and you'll be able to get a lot more insights and a lot more information from Eric and I. We're going to be launching a brand new podcast called Change Itself next month. And we'll have a regular monthly episode with guests and topics around technology introduction and change management and everything that we're experiencing on a day-to-day basis that might be we might be able to shed some light on that. People are not alone. A lot of times when you're challenging things, you feel like you're all by yourself, having these issues, and there's no one out to help you. But at the end, we're all humans, and we're all experiencing the same occurrences of different scenarios. So the more that we share, and the more that we collaborate as a team globally, I think there's going to be some good benefits. So we're pretty excited about having those conversations real time with Change Itself.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm quite happy to see that you're kind of picking up that mantle and doing it, because we've been doing our show and we've seen a couple, and I of course, because I'm somewhat involved with it, I see that you're really committing to it, and we've seen people come up, they do a few episodes and then they fade away, and it's exciting to see companies committing to actually getting content out there and doing it once a month or however they're going to do it, because we need more of it. If you're only a few shows out there going, there's not enough information getting pushed through, and doesn't become normal to have it. It's like, well, mining now, if there's only one of us, you want 10 different shows going so people can pick the information, people can do the circuit to share technology. That's how it needs to evolve to. So I'm very excited to see Sofvie and Technica Mining, you two, sort of leading the charge and getting private companies into pushing out this content. It's going to be really important.
I'm excited about it.
Okay. Thank you for joining the show, gentlemen. Thank you, Gowdy, for keeping everything rolling. this is our first episode back since CIM. We've got lots more Mining Now episodes coming, lots more Crownsman Energy, lots more of the Crownsman Show. We are talking to some fantastic companies. So keep watching, subscribing, sharing it, suggesting guests. It's been absolutely amazing. Gowdy, where can people follow us?
First up, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got 2 episodes a week on there. Like Jared said, from Mining Now, Crownsman Energy, The Crownsman Show. If you would like to be a guest on one of the shows, contact us, info@crownsman.com. You can also contact us if you'd like to recommend someone to be on the show as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gowdy. Thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you, Gus and Eric, for joining the show, and Gus for coming back on it. We've had a ton of part 2s with it.
Yeah.
I see the elevation of when people come back, so they kind of know what's going on, and then this whole setup today was great. So thank you, everybody. See you on the next episode of Mining Now.